I can't believe it's the end of 2024, Hosey. I feel like we only just got out of the draw yesterday.
You old sock. But it has been a while, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. I hear the hand's been quite busy back at university.
University? He's not abandoning us for a real job, is he?
Oh, I hope not. At least, that's not what I'm feeling down there at the moment. But perhaps a bit of love and a few donations might help keep the power on over here and convince the hand to keep the sock drawer open a little more often.
I hope so. Come on, guys, get over to ironinformationnews.com, donate what you can, or buy some merch to help keep the best sock puppet news show in the world alive in the new year.
Well said, Hosey. Anyway, let's get our recap of the year started with Christinia Solich, Rupert Holsworthy, and James Plushfoot.
With a little help from Joe Sockick and Jane Bunyan on the sport and weather.
As we present our INN 2024 Retrospective.
The new year started with a bang. Thousands of them actually, as a festival in Abu Dhabi breaks 4 Guinness World Records during a 60-minute fireworks show that also featured 5,000 drones. Taylor Swift mania hit Australia, and 500,000 drones turned out for her Eras tour before her dad went bang and punched out a reporter. Mary from Tassie became Australia's first Queen consort in Denmark. But when Tasmania's Parliament raised her Danish flag in place of the Aboriginal one, it stoked another Australia Day temper tantrum.
Abolish Australia! Abolish Australia! Australia Day is dead!
But it wasn't just Australians starting the year with sand in their cracks. German anti-right-wing extremism protests got extreme. Kim Jong-un in North Korea ruled out peace with the South by demolishing this arch of reunification in Pyongyang. And the US and UK continued to launch airstrikes in Yemen and Somalia. Yeah, that's still going on. NASA announced the retirement of the Mars helicopter. Why don't we talk more about the helicopter on Mars? Oh, probably because we're all talking about Disney and Mickey Mouse entering the public domain, immediately being exploited by B-grade filmmakers and over 500 porn stars registering the trading name Steamboat Willie.
Sport in the Aussie summer, and Yannick Sinner comes back from 2 sets down to beat Daniil Medvedev and win the Australian Open for his first ever Grand Slam.
But while we were having fun in the sun, 60 people sadly lost their lives in the US as an Arctic blast of climate change caused dangerous road conditions and power outages.
Elon Musk's Neuralink successfully implants a brain-computer interface into a real person for the first time. Initial results failing to show any increases in right-wing extremism so far. The 66th Grammy Awards celebrated the best musicians on our planet, and they were Miley Cyrus, Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, and this person. King Charles III and the Princess of Wales, both diagnosed with cancer within a month. Former 2-time president of Chile, Sebastián Piñera, forced to jump to his death from a failing helicopter. And Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who survived assassination by poisoning in 2020 and was then sentenced to 19 years in a Siberian prison, died suddenly.
A few moments later.
Voters re-elect Putin for a 5th term in office. External observers remarking Putin had no real opposition. And it's no wonder why.
The Kansas City Chiefs go back-to-back in the Super Bowl, the first repeat champions in almost 20 years. Of course, the US can't have anything nice, and another mass shooting follows the win, killing 1 fan and injuring 22.
But thank God Taylor Swift made it to the game on time from Tokyo. But I do worry her private jet might be adding to our climate crisis. She made 11 trips in February alone, emitting 393 metric tons of CO2. That's nearly 30% more than an average person emits in a year. Come on, Taylor.
Super Tuesday in the US, and President Joe Biden and Donald Trump win the majority of their respective primaries. 750 National Guard troops are sent to New York City subways to counter crime and violent assaults. The governor of Oregon declares a 90-day state of emergency in response to record fentanyl overdoses, and the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore collapses, killing 6 workers. but old mate Biden delivered a spirited State of the Union to get things back on track by shouting anti-Republican rhetoric for just over 1 hour. Oppenheimer wins the Oscar for Best Picture, Director and Actor, while Barbie was snubbed. Sweden officially joins NATO, becoming its 32nd member. Unsurprisingly, Russia immediately declares that they'll now be referring to their war against Ukraine as a war. Despite being elected last year, Dutch Party for Freedom leader Geert Wilders is forced to abandon attempts to form a coalition government due to lack of support from other parties. Ah, democracy, eh?
The Rugby League kicks off in Las Vegas for some reason, and the AFL starts its season announcing their long-awaited expansion team in Tasmania. Aussie Matilda Sam Kerr cops some heat, arrested for racially abusing a police officer in London.
And speaking of heat, March 2024 was the warmest March on record, with average global temperatures at 1.35 degrees above pre-industrial averages.
6 women and 1 man are fatally stabbed and 12 more injured by a frenzied attacker at a Bondi shopping centre in Sydney, who was shot and killed by Police Inspector Amy Scott, who bravely confronted the attacker. Days later, a live-stream Islamic terrorist attack in a Sydney church injured 4, including Bishop Murray Emanuel, who was stabbed in the eye, prompting Australia's e-safety commissioner and former Twitter employee Julie Inman Grant to order US social media companies, including X and Meta, to remove all footage of the stabbing worldwide, trying to redefine social media for the whole world, and had to embarrassingly withdraw their case just a few months later. Former Liberal staffer Bruce Lehrmann thought it'd be a good idea to go back to court and grab some defamation money off Network 10 after they aired rape allegations made by colleague Brittany Higgins that allegedly happened after a work party in a senator's office in Parliament House, and then were discontinued by Higgins' legal team after an initial mistrial. But Justice Michael Lee was not in a sympathetic mood, not only ruling against Lehrmann, but adding that on the balance of probabilities he did rape Higgins, suggesting that,
having escaped the lion's den, Mr. Lehrmann made the mistake in coming back for his hat.
a rare solar eclipse appeared across North America, not to be seen for another 20 years. And NASA announced it has received decipherable data from the Voyager 1 space probe for the first time in 5 months. That thing's more out there than Alex Jones.
Scotty Scheffler wins his second Masters tournament in Augusta, Georgia, but gets a little carried away a few weeks later, arrested by police on his way to the PGA tournament for reckless driving and assaulting a police officer.
And the weather's been a bit erratic too. April was recorded as Australia's coolest in over a decade, but Earth's warmest overall. It's hard being a meteorologist sometimes.
The Russia-Ukraine war continues. President Putin's interest in negotiating a ceasefire and resolution dismissed by Ukrainian President Zelensky, who was still campaigning hard for military funding.
Give us a credit.
And he received it. Over to Israel and Hamas, and Turkey suspends all trade with Israel in response to their conduct in the war in Gaza. Hamas's interest in a ceasefire rejected by Israel. Don't you feel sometimes like these wars are being sustained for financial purpose?
Careful, Holsworthy. Next story, please.
AstraZeneca quietly withdraws its COVID-19 vaccines worldwide due
I warned you, Holsworthy. Next story.
Eurovision.
There we go.
And Switzerland win this year's contest with The Code by Nemo. But all the action is off stage. Dutch favourite Hoost Klein is disqualified over verbal threats, and controversy surrounds the inclusion of Israel. And the Boy Scouts rebrand as Scouting America in an effort to make girls feel more welcome. No word yet on whether Girl Scouts of America will be changing their name for the boys.
Manchester City win their 4th consecutive Premier League. Real Madrid win their bloody 15th Champions League. And in 2020 cricket, the Kolkata Knight Riders win the $6.4 billion Indian Premier League.
And they survived global warming as temperatures in New Delhi soared to a record 52.9 degrees. Pending an accuracy check, of course, as every other reading was around 45.
Democrats rejoice as Donald Trump is found guilty on 34 felony counts relating to falsified business records, becoming the first US president to be convicted of a crime. But he turns things around with a huge win in a televised debate against Joe Biden.
With dealing with everything we have to do with,
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Of course, we thought Trump's biggest crime was not pardoning Julian Assange when he had the chance. The former WikiLeaks founder finally released to Australian soil as a free man for the first time in 15 years. Former President of Iran Mohammad Ahmadinejad announces he will run again following the helicopter crash that killed sitting President Ibrahim Raisi. Western media quickly reported there was no foul play in the crash, so that's that then. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, former Prime Minister and legendary cricketer Imran Khan is sentenced to 10 years in prison for leaking state secrets. He was then acquitted, then he and his wife were charged with unlawful marriage, and then acquitted again. But Khan remains in jail and is still ineligible to run as Prime Minister again for allegedly receiving and selling gifts during his first stint.
He recycled this gift! He's a regifter!
Someone does not want that man back in power.
1,300 people died at this year's Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia from heat-related climate change. And 2 climate protesters try to do something about it by spray painting Stonehenge orange, and then a jet they thought might have belonged to Taylor Swift. Unfortunately, the paint came off with a handheld blower the next day, and the jet belonged to some other person.
The Boston Celtics defeat the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games to win their 16th NBA championship and pass the LA Lakers as the most successful NBA franchise. And the Florida Panthers defeat the Edmonton Oilers in 7 games, winning their first ever Stanley Cup. Wait. Oh, me arm's open. Oh, Jane, me arm's wide open. Oh, how embarrassing.
Wow, what a year, Sandy!
We're only halfway through, Brian.
Halfway?
Yeah, you know our retrospectives are comprehensive and handmade, not like that AI junk you get out there.
Oh, you mean like Spotify Wrapped? That thing said I was a pink Pilates princess this year.
Yes, AI's working well, isn't it? Anyway, I need to go to the toilet.
What? Socks go to the toilet? How does that even work?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Hey, Sandy.
Yes, make it quick.
So, if you're Australian and you're going to the toilet, and you're Australian coming out of the toilet, then what are you when you're in the toilet?
I don't know, Brian. I really need to go.
European.
I'm out of here.
Get it? European. European.
Who could forget France spending $1.5 billion in Paris on the worst opening ceremony in Olympic history? Even worse than Seoul 1988 when they burnt these doves alive. The progressive political drag show featured guys with their testicles out near kids, parodying the Last Supper of Christ, and was held outside in torrential rain, a 3-hour disjointed mess that was hailed as a huge success by all the media outlets you don't trust anymore.
And there was some sport on too. Remember Saya Sakakibara winning BMX gold for her brother? And what about 14-year-old skateboarder Arissa True, the youngest Aussie to ever win Olympic gold? Our girls smashed it in the pool, and this Algerian female boxer with a Y chromosome smashed everyone to a bloody pulp to win gold. And what about the breakdancing, eh? Our very own Ray Gunn, with a PhD in breakdancing, received 0 points for the judges who obviously have no idea about Aussie culture.
New bird flu starting to appear in cows and people, although human-to-human transmission hasn't been detected yet. There was also a tech crisis causing massive service outages that affected CrowdStrike, Microsoft, and America and Delta Airline systems, affecting millions. While over in the UK, PM Rishi Sunak announced plans to reintroduce military conscription before getting absolutely smashed at the elections by Keir Starmer's Labour Party. And the French had their own elections too. Marine Le Pen's right-wing National Rally earning a 33.2% majority of the vote, but wait,
France has 2 rounds of voting. And guess what? There was a hung parliament, so Macron continued. 33 people are killed in US mass shootings during 4th of July celebrations. Days later, a judge dismisses Alec Baldwin of all charges when he accidentally shot a cinematographer dead with a loaded gun. And then, if guns weren't in the news enough, former US President Donald Trump almost gets his head blown off.
Take a look at what happened.
An assassination attempt at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. The suspect is shot dead about 90 minutes after he was first reported as a suspicious person. 2 audience members are injured and 1 killed in the shooting. A bleeding Trump getting up and yelling, "Fight, fight, fight," creating one of the most iconic images of modern times. President Biden gets COVID-19 again, the 3rd time in 2 years.
You're okay. You're not gonna get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
But under huge pressure, withdraws from the race a few days later and is replaced by his Vice President Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris.
In other sports, Spain broke English hearts to win their 4th Euro title. Carlos Alcaraz beat Novak to win his 2nd Wimbledon title, but the wily old dog got his own back at the Olympics, beating Alcaraz and becoming the 3rd male to achieve a career Golden Grand Slam.
And July 22nd became the Earth's hottest day in recorded history, estimated to be the hottest day in the past 100,000 years, with a global average surface temperature of 17.09 degrees. That doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is.
Rioting breaks out in the UK after 3 children are killed and 8 injured in a mass stabbing at a Taylor Swift-themed yoga and dance workshop. Brand new Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer calms the nation by accusing the far right and misinformation of being responsible for the violence, nationalising the use of facial recognition technology and surveillance, much to the dismay of the small amount of human rights advocates who still understand their job. Malaysia urges its citizens not to travel to the UK because of the riots, not because of their disappearing airliners that mark 10-year anniversaries. It was brat summer for Gen Z girls who love to make up imaginary cultural moments. The Iran-Israel conflict heats up. Vladimir Zelensky bans the Russian branch of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, to much condemnation, including from Pope Francis. The World Health Organization announces that Mpox is back. And virtue laws were reintroduced by the Taliban in Afghanistan, 3 years after their defeat of US occupation. And now women are banned from singing, reading, speaking aloud or being seen in public under new laws approved by their supreme leader.
The French got a 2nd chance to do an Olympics that didn't offend half the world, but they took a few miserly shortcuts. I mean, they reused the bloody Olympic mascot and just slapped a black boot on him to look like a Blade Runner.
A deadly Atlantic hurricane season leads to 401 deaths. Hurricane Helen in the US kills 160 people, becoming the 2nd deadliest hurricane after Katrina, with climate change likely to have caused 10% more rain, and probably some more wind and stuff.
Sean P. Diddy Puff Daddy Combs may have thrown the best parties in Hollywood, according to Oprah, Ellen, and Johnson's Baby Oil. But he was arrested on federal charges for sex trafficking and racketeering, implicating many celebrities in Hollywood who are sure to face just as much justice as they did in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Brazil blocks Elon Musk's ex, Justice D. Morales, setting a daily fine of around $10,000 for any person or company using a VPN to access the site. And how do they work that out, do you think? Across to Venezuela, new President Nicolas Maduro was so happy to win their election, he announced the country would celebrate Christmas early on the 1st of October. The EU, US, and UK are among other countries to sign the first international treaty on the use of AI systems. Wells Fargo projecting that AI power demand will increase by over 1,000% by 2030. Donald Trump trialed some new material during his set at the 2nd presidential debate.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
But not everyone was amused. A second gunman trying to take Trump out at his own golf course. And thousands of handheld pages exploded simultaneously across Lebanon and Syria in an Israeli attack nicknamed Operation Grim Beeper.
It's not funny, mate.
Sorry.
To Australia's religion now, the AFL, and the Brisbane Lions roll the Sydney Swans to win their 4th AFL premiership. In the Rugby League, the Panthers beat the Melbourne Storm to win their 4th premiership in a row. Geez, boys, it's starting to get boring.
And if you thought the footy was hot, a weather station in Iran recorded the hottest ever temperature on Earth. The unverified heat index temperature of 81.2 degrees is the highest...
Unverified heat index? What's that?
Oh, well, climatologists are still investigating whether the readings were accurate.
Ah, jeez, next month.
President Jimmy Carter celebrates his 100th birthday. The first centenarian former US president. Does that mean he's older than Joe Biden? Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthis launch rockets and missiles towards Tel Aviv, Israel, on the anniversary of the October 7th attacks that started the conflict. Well, at least that's how one side puts it. The conflict probably started about 2,000 years ago. A third man is arrested on suspicion of planning another Trump assassination. SpaceX launches a NASA spacecraft to study Jupiter's moon Europa. SpaceX also catches one of its boosters in mid-air for the first time. Check this out. Victorian Senator Lydia Thorpe heckles King Charles at Parliament House.
October's all about baseball in the States. LA beat the New York Yankees in 5 games, while the Chicago White Sox record the worst season in history with 121 losses. Jeez.
And floodwaters killed 231 people in one of the deadliest natural disasters ever to hit Spain. Similar rain events have hit the region in the past, but once again, all the media's saying this one's on climate change too.
Donald Trump and Senator J.D. Vance are overwhelmingly elected as the 47th President and 50th Vice President of the United States. Trump became the first person since Grover Cleveland in 1892 to serve 2 non-consecutive presidential terms, as well as being the first convicted felon to be elected president. His Republican Party won the Senate, the House, the popular vote, and every battleground state, despite the media saying the election was too close to call. Linda McMahon is nominated by Trump as Education Secretary due to her background in professional wrestling. We are getting very close to idiocracy, aren't we?
One more time, Holsworthy, and I'm pulling you.
Okay. 5 people are charged over the death of One Direction singer Liam Payne, who fell to his death from a hotel balcony in Argentina. And the Australian House of Representatives passes a bill to restrict social media access for people under the age of 16 years, but dumped its misinformation bill to control and regulate speech on social media.
In Formula 1, young stars Lando Norris and Australia's very own Oscar Piastri win their first ever races, before Max Verstappen went on to win his 4th consecutive Drivers' Championship with Red Bull, with McLaren taking out the Constructors' Championship.
The Pakistani Health Department report at least 1.8 million people in the Punjab region have become sick with respiratory and eye irritation ailments caused by chronic, record-breaking air pollution contributing to...
Oh, let me guess, contributing to climate change. Does the climate have to ruin everything, Jane?
Well, yeah. I wouldn't have a job if I didn't think it would.
Oh, well, I never thought of that. I suppose you're right.
A US House committee releases the final report on COVID-19 in America, stating that the following things you could lose your job over if you believe them during the pandemic are now most likely true. The CEO of health insurance company United Healthcare is assassinated by a masked gunman in broad daylight in New York City. And the US is so bonkers, the murderer becomes a cult hero for being hot. Bitcoin surpasses $100,000 for the first time. And remember Hawk Tour Girl? Well, Hayley Welsh launched a career after that, and a meme coin, which people actually bought. The Assad regime finally and surprisingly collapses during a major offensive by opposition forces. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad flees the country to Moscow, Russia. Unfortunately, 6 civilians were killed by celebratory gunfire. Old mate Biden decides to pardon his son Hunter, who had pled guilty to federal tax evasion, despite the current president saying he wouldn't issue a pardon for the best part of 4 years. And we end the year with mysterious drone sightings across the northeastern United States. Airspace is closed over 2 nuclear power plants, prompting calls for federal government intervention.
There's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
And there was lots of sport and weather in December too, wasn't there, babe?
Keep it professional, will you, Joe?
Oh, right. Sorry, babe. I mean, Jane. Anyway, we'll keep December sport and weather up our sleeves, eh?
For our first Iron episode of 2025.
Exactly. As long as the hand can find some time away from uni.
I reckon a few donations might coax him out of his hiatus.
Bloody oath it will. Get over to INNformationnews.com if you liked our retrospective and want to see more of INN in 2025. But for now, on behalf of Christinia Solich, Rupert Holsworthy, James Plushfoot,
and Joe and myself,
thanks Jane, this has been our 2024 INN Retrospective. Oh, and stay tuned for the INN Awards coming up right after this. Bye for now. Say bye, babe.
Joe!
Sorry, Jane. Why do I keep doing that?
Oh, you're a sweetie.
Oh, thanks.
Bye now.